In the RRC, the Recovery Revolution Community, we have some amazing online meetings, and one of those is our Tao Recovery Meeting. In this meeting, one chapter of the Tao Te Ching is discussed every week as to how it relates to recovery. I hope you enjoy this week's podcast episode.
Hey guys, Buddy C. This is the July 18th, 2019 Tao Te Ching Recovery Meeting for the Recovery Revolution Community. I'd like to welcome Lala M. and Marla H. and Craig M. with us today. We're going to be talking about the 50th chapter of the Tao Te Ching. Got some good stuff. Good stuff. One interesting thing I got out of this was how even then they had in their spiritual practice the same thing that we see, especially see in AA and in recovery, are people who will go so far and stop. You know, you wonder why they stop. You know, why don't you just keep going on this journey? You know, you do enough to get sober, and then you stop seeking or stop growing spiritually. I see it all the time. Don't y'all see that with, like, especially in AA, where you're around?
Especially in AA.
Well, that's the one place where you see a lot of people in recovery, you know, that are at different phases. You know, I don't know anywhere else where I see people in recovery at different phases, all in one room, you know. So it's easy to see there. I used to see it in church when I went to church. You know, I used to, you know, in any kind of spiritual practice, you've got a community. I think you can see it where people, they get so far and they say, the view's fine from here. Y'all keep going, you know. I don't want to work no more. I want to stop.
Yeah.
So, and that, for me, that's what this one's talking about, a lot of that.
It's really interesting what you got out of it, because I got out of it not to fear death. And also about enjoying the life you have. Yeah. And not to, we're going to die anyways, that you're not your body, you're really your soul. And you know, just to live your life without the fear of death.
Wow. Any other previews?
Did we read the same verse?
50th? I think so.
Yeah. 50?
That's funny. You know, that's just like if you're ever in a meet, any kind of recovery meeting. I know it from AA. You have a topic, and when they go around and share, people all hear different things.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Because we all hear what we need. You know, we all hear where we're at and what we need. That's interesting. That's good. That's good. Lala, you gonna read for us today, dear? Y'all are gonna have to carry me today. I'm just barely awake. I'm still just in a fog.
50th chapter of the Tao Te Ching. First translation. Between birth and death, 3 and 10 are followers of life. 3 and 10 are followers of death. And men just go passing from birth to death also number 3 and 10. Why is this so? Because they live their lives on the gross level. He who knows how to live can walk abroad without fear of rhinoceros or tiger. He will not be wounded in battle, for in him rhinoceroses can find no place to thrust their horn, tigers no place to use their claws, and weapons no place to pierce. Why is this so? Because he has no place for death to enter. Second translation. The master gives himself up to whatever the moment brings. He knows that he is going to die, and her has nothing left to hold on to. No illusions in his mind, no resistances in his body. He does not think about his actions. They flow from the core of his being. He holds nothing back from life. Therefore, he is ready for death as a man is ready for sleep after a good day's work. Third translation. For those who leave the womb at birth and those who enter their source at death. Out of these, 3 out of 10 celebrate life. 3 out of 10 celebrate death. And 3 out of 10 simply go from life to death. What is the reason for this? Because they're afraid of dying. Therefore, they cannot live. I have heard that those who celebrate life walk safely among the wild animals. When they go into battle, they remain unharmed. The animals find no place to attack them, and the weapons are unable to harm them. Why? Because they can find no place for death. Final translation. People who look for the secret of long life wind up dead. Their bodies are the focus of their lives and the source of their death because they think a healthy body is all there is to live life. Lao Tzu used to say, a man who truly understood life could walk through the jungle without fear or across a battlefield without armor, totally unharmed. Wild animals and weapons couldn't kill him. I know. What the hell does that mean? Well, he couldn't be killed, Lao Tzu said, because his body wasn't where he kept his death.
What the hell does that mean?
I haven't seen that.
So you don't think that in somewhere in those 4 translations, there is the idea that we live with the idea of knowing we're going to die so that we live. We live the life that's in front of us without fear of what's coming at us.
Oh, I think it does. But I think that's the small remnant that lives that way, Marla, not the whole. That's the 10%.
Yeah, that's the 1/3 that lives like that.
Yeah. And, and I think it's really like the 10% of those in recovery. One of the most aggravating things for me in recovery are the people I see that get better and then stop growing spiritually. That's been a hard thing for me not to criticize and to accept. And I see it locally because, we have a clubhouse, and I don't go to a lot of meetings here, but I know everyone. And I used to go to a lot of meetings when I first started. And I know all these people, and we interact some, go to things, do stuff. And I will see people who have 20 and 30 years of sobriety, and they haven't really grown that much. They're still not trusting God with other parts of their life other than their alcohol. They still are fearful. They're still all these things that I'm learning to be free of. And it's aggravating to me, and I've had to learn not to criticize people for that.
Well, that was my very, very issue with AA meetings is I wasn't learning from anyone because they were stuck. And they follow the steps, and they do the same thing every year, and they do their inventories. They never changed.
Yeah.
And, I needed more.
Yeah, I feel like it's like when I do go to AA meetings, it's not all of them, but just definitely the few here in the rural South town I'm in. But it's like they do the bare minimum to stay sober, as in they go to meetings every day. They don't drink. They do the steps. But I need all my other stuff that I put in place, like my Buddhist practice, lots of other things like volunteer work, helping others. I feel like they do the bare minimum to stay sober.
Or the people that follow the big book letter by letter.
Yeah.
And there's nothing else for them. They don't seem to need anything else but that.
But see, I'm like, buddy, I'm kind of fine with that. It's like, that's your path. That's your path.
No judgment.
No judgment. It's just like I need more than to not just be sober.
But I'm not going to learn anything from them.
I'm like on a different path. I want a
different path.
Yeah. And that's not to say, and I don't want this to become an AA back, because I would dare do nothing to bash AA, because that's not why I even mentioned that. But that's the one kind of spiritual group I have to compare it against, because I think we see it in any spiritual practice. If you had a group of people together that were following a particular practice, you would see the same things.
Yeah.
You know, you would see and not everyone in AA does not want to follow a spiritual path. I don't want to say that. That's not what I mean.
No, I know.
My mind, though, I pick out the ones that are not, because that's what I'm seeing, you know. And so I used to see that a lot. And now I'm learning to accept that, and people can do whatever they want to. I even have sponsees now. I've been sponsoring long enough to where I have sponsees that are starting to do that. Like, we're on this path going up this mountain. We're getting this view that's getting better and better. And you get to a certain point and you say, okay, I enjoy this view. I think I'm just going to stay here. You guys can keep going if you want, but I'm going to stop right here. And I've had to accept that even out of sponsees, and people do that all the time. And that's what I saw in this. And I saw what you're talking about, Marla, too. But I got to thinking the 1 in 10, because they talked about 3 different groups of people.
They separate the groups out.
Yeah, they said the followers of life, the followers of death, and those passing from death to life, or from passing from birth to death.
And those who just take care of their bodies. I was thinking about the extreme athletes who do he shall remain nameless, but he's written books, and he triathlete, and he's a vegan, and he
Yeah.
And I look at him, I think this guy fears death so badly that he has doing whatever he can not to die.
That kicks out his fear, yeah.
Yeah, I think, you know.
Who are you talking about?
Marla doesn't want to say on the podcast, Greg.
He's famous.
What's your take on this, Craig? You're taking this in. I know you've got some ideas on this.
Well, it's interesting that he's putting the 3. Yeah, I know who it is now. Marla's put in the chat. I thought that's who it was. I didn't think you'd have issues with him.
I don't. I think he fears death. That's all. That's all I'm saying. I don't have an issue with that at all. I think that I'm happy for what he's done with his life.
The goal is to die now, Craig. That's the goal, see?
Die now.
To let your life go now, so that you don't fear death.
Right, okay, right.
Then when it's time to die, and I love this analogy that it's time to die, it's like after a tired day and you're ready for sleep.
Yeah. No, I like the fact that you broke down into the 4 categories. So there was a 3, and then another 3, so that makes the 9 out of the 10. So obviously the one that's left is obviously the one that is able to master and just basically be and get on with things.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the first part where it says between birth and death. I can't remember, was it Jim Rohn who'd done a motivational speech about things that you could do with your life and not concentrating on the big things, but concentrating on the small things. And one of the small things in your life is the dash that's going to be on your tombstone.
Yeah.
Between your date of birth and your date of death.
Yeah. What's the dash? How do you live your dash?
Yeah, he says that little thing is the biggest thing that you can concentrate on, because that little thing is right now, and that's the things that you apply yourself to. So that kind of sprung to mind when I read that. And there was the other part that was going on about...
Hey, talking about the dash.
Yeah.
You guys had a place in your spiritual walk yet where you have a full realization of the vanity of life, and that how nothing matters, that whole thing?
Yeah, I think is it kind of like a paradigm shift where you think to yourself, do you know what, this is why I drink. And then once you've been sober for a while, once you've started to grow personally wise, you think to yourself, I drink because of this.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But how petty can this be? And I think a lot of it is vanity. A lot of it is want to look better than everybody else and try to.
How much about your life? What do you know about your grandparents?
A lot.
What do you know about your great-grandparents?
Nothing.
Right. So within 3 generations, other than now that we have all the technology, within 3 generations, no one's going to know anything about anything that we do.
Now, there's a great line, I don't know if you know the Jack Nicholson movie called About Schmidt, where he basically, he has a line at the end of the movie, and it's actually one of his more serious dramatic roles, where he said, after a couple more years, I'm going to be gone, and everybody who remembered me, and they're going to be gone. And then it's like, what am I leaving here? What's my mark?
Right.
So basically maybe children or parents, but other than that, after a couple of generations, you're just a tombstone with a dash.
Exactly.
There was somebody else says that they don't leave a legacy, they want to leave memories.
Say that again?
They don't leave a legacy, they want to leave memories.
Yeah, but those two, I mean, my personal opinion is all we can leave is the love that we give to others. I think that how we help someone else's life and enrich it is, and all that's in the moment.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of the point of it, is like it matters what we do here and now. And
exactly. And all this amassing does not matter.
And people remember how you make them feel rather than what you've done. How did they make me feel? And that's how I want to live, is how do I make other people feel? I want to make them feel good and feel better.
Yeah. Makes less people try to avoid me today than tried to avoid me yesterday. It can start there, Yeah.
The other thing that jumped into me was in the 4th translation, people who look for the secret of life wind up dead. So it kind of reminds me of what Buddy would say, he who dies with the most toys dies.
Yeah. That's
Buddy will buy the toys off eBay.
I resell them, yes, that's right.
I think of that more as the pushing aspect, which is the opposite of like the Buddhist practice of emptiness and openness.
Yeah, and living in the silence.
Looking and searching for light so hard that they miss it.
Yeah.
Which is who I was talking about earlier, the ultramarathoner.
I see it in the chat.
He's going to die. He's going to die early. For what? But, I'm just guessing.
No, he's not. Vegan.
Hey, Craig. Derek Lynn had good descriptions of these 3 groups. He did a good job of that, I think.
Yeah. He's got them down as the followers of life are 3 and 10. The followers of death, those whose lives are moved towards death, also 3 and 10. Why? Because they live lives of excess. So when I read that, I kind of got to thinking of there's another saying that life isn't a dress rehearsal. Was it the Dalai Lama that said that?
Maybe.
I've heard it before.
Yeah. So it kind of made me think that, and I kind of get guilty of this as well. I kind of think to myself, when I grow up, I can do this. And I think to myself, I'm 21 now. Maybe I should start doing it already.
Yeah. He was thinking about the followers of life are the ones that take no risk in life at all.
Yeah.
They don't do anything risky. Everything. I know people like this, that everything is safe. They don't even speed. They're just by the rules, won't even push anything on their taxes at all. They won't do any. They're just the real conservative,
I'm married to him.
Sometimes you need it to balance you out.
I'm married to somebody who's so afraid of death that he does everything by the book. He's so afraid to die.
So we could say 3 and 10 are like Marla's husband. Okay, and the second 3 and 10 what, it was self-destructive, Craig? Was that what he said?
Yeah, the followers of death are people with self-destructive tendencies. They rush headlong into any situation recklessly and put their health and safety at risk. So,
impulse control. I mean,
Yes.
having no impulse control. And I mean, I definitely have a touch of that even still in sobriety, because it's like, I'm so scared to let life, we're here for such a short time, and I know this was definitely an active user. I got to feel everything right now, or else I'm going to completely miss out on life.
I would probably definitely I definitely would fall into that category, because every night I was just on a path of self-destruction. I just wasn't interested in anything at all, just as long as I was getting my fix, as long as I was getting my drink, nothing else mattered. And it was just that spiral that I kept going into.
But I would say even now I have a touch of that, it's like just anxiety of like, I'm not doing enough to, it comes into that whole thing of letting go and being open. But I mean, I definitely still have tinges of that. I've got to be doing something to be successful every single day. And, I definitely still have tinges of it.
It depends on your definition of success.
Right.
It depends on how you want to be viewed as successful. It's
not about money.
Yeah, making it to bed without drinking, or coming home and actually still having my job at the end of the day, to me is successful at the moment.
I think that's what it is, and I think Marla and I talked about it before. I'm doing a lot of volunteer work and work on myself, but it's odd not having a job for someone that was so driven as me.
Yeah. I mean,
it's an adjustment, and it's not.
It's a surrender.
It's a surrender, and it's not financially based. I mean, a little bit it is, but it's more of just using my brain in that way.
And just knowing that, Lala, and I'm in some of this with you, because I had several businesses going all the time, and my life has totally taken a shift from that. And I have had to learn that whatever's in front of me to do is what I need to do right now. It's not, I don't have to rationalize doing something by working extra hours. I don't have to rationalize doing this by working extra hours tonight to make up for the hours that I didn't work this morning, which is how I used to do it. If I took an hour off, I had to make that hour up sometime. That whole idea of that it's up to me to make this happen, whatever it is I'm thinking about,
And I also know, I did it willingly, and it was a self-imposed choice, because anytime, I'm a doer, so anytime I get involved in a project or work, recovery went out the window, and it was like pattern every single time. So it's like, you really need to block off an extended period of time, not so much in isolation, but outside of the big city distractions. And, I have a therapist who says you can make so much of a difference in a small community, because think about how many there are of you in a large community, like in New York City. You can make such a difference in people's lives in a smaller rural area than...
Right. It's absolutely true. We go with this big idea, I'm going to change the world, but you have to change you first, and then the community, then your friends and your community, in little bits and pieces. It can't be a whole thing.
And that's why I think Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself, not love Africa as yourself, It starts with the people around you. You can't do all of that, it's about the people you're in touch with that you learn to love,
And he actually had a good point, too, where he's like, think about it when there were rural tribes. There's probably a lot less depression and anxiety, because everybody felt useful and needed, and it's much easier to get sucked into that trap of depression and anxiety when you're just a number in a big city.
And this is the thing, too. If we can learn to be useful in a different way, right, rather than saying, okay, I want to be useful, so I'm going to do this and this and this to make a difference. Instead, if I say, okay, God, I'm available. And then when we see something happening, we respond. We open our heart, like Singer talks about in Untethered Soul. We open our heart, and we're just ready. and we let God put the right people in our path for whatever it is that needs doing. And I guarantee you, if you do that in a sincere, honest way and look, you will stumble over people to help. Yeah. It will just appear out of nowhere. It's nothing you have to make happen. You don't have to make it happen. You just have to respond when you see it. And that's a whole different, that's taking the push and force out of helping people, which I think is so important that we change everything about our, like me loving my wife is not about me thinking of all these great things I can do for her. It's just about me opening my heart to her and sending love to her. And what I can do for her will just
naturally.
I think that's the actions that we learn to take in every area of life. So we stop that push and we start living. That's how we start living effortlessly, I think, in this.
Create space.
Yes.
Without judgment.
I'm sorry, Marla, I missed that.
Create space without judgment.
Yes. Yes. Now, what's the third one in Derek Lynn, Craig? How does he say the third group?
Those who live lives are moved towards death are also 3 and 10. So those whose lives are moved towards death. Why? Because they live lives of excess. So he explains that as the people in the third category start out living life to the fullest and sample all the pleasures of the world. It's easy to overindulge when they do this. So soon their excesses take a heavy toll on them. Overindulgence leads to death.
Okay. So you got a group that's cautious. You've got a group that's self-destructive. And you've got a group that may start out well, living life to their fullest, but they let overindulgences take their life from them. So they, like us in recovery is a good example of that.
Yes, it's like complacency. They get complacent.
Mm-hmm.
They just focus on the things that they think works.
Don't you think that rather than this just being in like people as a whole, that we have different areas of our life that we're in all these different places?
Yeah. That's.
I have places in my life I'm way too conservative, way too safe. Sure. And then I have self-destructive areas of my life. One of those is my R1200 RT BMW out in the garage. Sometimes I can be self-destructive on it, and I have to calm down. Say, buddy, you don't have to take those curves that fast. It's okay. You don't have to be the fastest. That kind of a thing.
So is there a progressive scale that you would want to be on this, or do you see it as a cycle? Do you go from one to the next to the next?
I don't know. Greg, you're thinking too much.
Don't overthink.
Yeah. Stop thinking and end your problems. But
I wasn't thinking, I was asking.
For me, I don't know, Craig. Could be. But I think the goal is the fourth group, though, that 1 in 10. That 1 in 10. I really like the way that second verse handles that whole transition. The master gives himself up to whatever the moment brings. That's what we're talking about, Lala, about where do we give, what do we do? I mean, I've told you the story of when I knew I needed to start doing that. God sent me a guy in a nursing home that I had to go every Friday. I didn't have to. I did. Every Friday for almost 2 years. And just took him out and did his thing, And I thought, why am I over here smelling piss in the nursing home? I don't like this. I thought I'd be doing these great things, and here I am, But that's the things that we do. The giving is in the little things, is in helping people, And that's a situation God presented to me, it just unfolded in front of me. It's nothing I made happen, and I didn't brag about it and tell everybody about it and, all those things. I just went and quietly did it. Or when I went and took my son out west when he was little, we'd take a Jeep out and ride around the desert for a week. And we had a GPS with a laptop, and we'd go all kinds of places, 4-wheel, see things and do. And every time I went on a trip, every time I came back, I had more money in the bank in my business than when I left. And I was like, how did this happen? And I kept telling my secretary it was a joke because we went once a year at least. And I said, I need to go back out west again. We need to make some money. I need to leave, you know.
Sometimes you make, I don't know, when I had my business in LA, it was in the beginning, of course, you have to do a lot of looking for business. But it was like the best when I stopped pushing and it just starts coming to you because you're already established. And it's like, you know, the less you do in those cases, the more you can succeed. Otherwise, you're spreading yourself so thin and you know, there's waste everywhere because you're not making right calculations and projections. So I was going to say similar to you, I just kept myself open this week and, you know, I haven't been having too much work to do other than here and there, but I just ended up helping a friend move and I ended up inheriting, her dad was a professor where my parents teach. So I have like this entire huge library now of like first edition old leather-bound books that I think are all worth tons of money.
Damn.
I've been kind of entering them here and there, but it's like, geez. And she just was like, just take them. I'm trying to get rid of stuff. And it's like, it's kind of busy work, but it's like, if I didn't have the time to actually sit back and, you know, do this, and it's an enjoyable thing and no rush, and, you know, and it's mostly philosophy books, which I love anyway. Yeah, so I just kept myself open. I went to go help. Acting without expectations, Craig.
Yeah.
And it just opened this whole new revenue stream and probably a whole new community of, you know, like-minded philosopher types.
Can't beat that.
Master gives himself up to whatever the moment brings. How often have I been in a moment that I never give myself up to what's happening right now. I'm always thinking about what's next or what's down the road or what I messed up on. Being in the moment. He knows that he's going to die and he has nothing left to hold on to. No illusions in his mind. No resistances in his body. He doesn't think about his actions. That's making the switch to that 1 in 10, you know? That is all about that switch to, that you're talking about, Marla. That switch to that 1 in 10. All his actions flow from the core of his being. He holds nothing back from life. Therefore, he is ready for death, as a man ready for sleep after a good day's work. In Christianity, there's a teaching about being crucified with Christ, that you've surrendered your life. Really, it's a teaching about surrender, very much like what we talk about. And one of the sayings from that is that you can't kill a dead man. He's already dead. So that's what they're talking about here, I think, is that when we've got rid of the illusions, when we have no resistance, then there's nothing, you know, when our self and our ego has been surrendered, when things come that would feed that, it's no longer an issue. I see parts of that. I don't see that in a whole yet.
Yeah, I know.
But you see what I'm saying, though. Mm-hmm. It's about dying now. It really is. And then we can really live. You know, we die to live. That's one of the paradoxes. You know, that's one of the AA paradoxes, is that we die to live. Same kind of thing. And that's exactly what this is talking about. But if we still hold on to self, still think we can run the show, we can make it happen in an area of life, still don't surrender fear that we may have about a particular thing, what we're going to see is that fear, and we're not going to experience the joy of death now. So
it's the death of the ego, right, really, or the old way of thinking.
It's the surrender and the letting go of all of that. You know, the selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear, getting rid of all of that, in my thinking.
That's what they're using the death to signify.
Yes. In my thinking, that's what I got out of it. So, comments?
No, but Wayne Dyer has a lot of good stuff to say on those notes.
Good transition, Marla. Good transition.
I'm learning. Do you want me to read the verse?
Dear, you read whatever you want to.
I will. So this is Wayne Dyer. Between birth and death, 3 in 10 are followers of life, 3 in 10 are followers of death, and men just passing from birth to death also number 3 in 10. Why is this so? Because they clutch to life and cling to this passing world. But there is 1 out of 10, they say, so sure of life that tigers and wild bulls keep clear. Weapons turn from him on the battlefield. Rhinoceroses have no place to warn him. Tigers find no place for claws. And soldiers have no place to thrust their blades. Why is this so? Because he dwells in that place where death cannot enter. Realize your essence, and you will witness the end without ending. So, living as an immortal. The Tao teaches that death is an insignificant detail that doesn't need to be consciously struggled with or dreaded. As this verse of the Tao Te Ching informs you, there's a place where death cannot enter. By altering the way you see death of infinity, knowing yourself first and foremost as a spiritual being, having a temporary human experience rather than the other way around. I'm jumping, as you say.
Yeah.
In this realm, you'll be gratefully adept at moving along free of the fear of life-threatening events. You'll have a knowing about yourself and your connection to the Tao that simply allows you to ride with life like a fearless downhill skier who's at one with the snow-covered mountain. Without resorting to judgment, you'll notice others who are perpetually victimized by scams, bureaucracies, indifference, natural disasters, criminals, or meddling relatives. And the next...
Hold on there. Meddling relatives. All right. I think this talks about as we die to these things, how we no longer attract them.
Yes, exactly.
So if we're still I met with a sponsor yesterday that he attracts anger. Everybody in his life, he attracts people that are angry.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just telling me about a situation. I'm like, you doing that causes you to attract more of that, right? Mm-hmm. I said, you're a magnet for these things. And he was, well, I know that. I said, well, just stop doing it. I said, and your life will be better just by not being angry by deciding not to react. You can stop attracting so much of this.
And conversely, you attract better people in your life.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when we start loving people and get rid of all of that stuff that's hindering us, what happens? We start attracting good people in my life, or in your life. I was just thinking about my life, how the people I'm around have changed over the years, and all I have in my life now, for the most part, are people that are loving people. And if people are not loving people, they don't last around me long. I will find someone else to hang around with. I'm not going to be around negative people for very long. I'm just not. It just isn't fun.
Which brings me to the next paragraph. With an intimate awareness of your infinite essence that's centered in the Tao, you'll most likely escape from victimization yourself, and you'll likely deal with situations that others tend to get stuck in. In other words, when you know your endless nature and live each day with this awareness directing you, there will simply be no space within you for mortality to call the shots. If harm ever does make an attempt to inflict damage or death on you, it won't find a place to sink its hooks into.
So that's what the rhinoceros and the soldier in the battle, all of that wasn't talking about an actual physical,
right?
Like Kung Fu guy, like running through and all that, and not finding a place. It's talking about it in a spiritual way, right?
It is, but I do have to relate it to animals. When you approach, a dog that's mean or fearful, If you approach it without fear, it tends to not be so fearful. You know, the animal senses your fearlessness and your innocence and your kindness, and it in turn can change and become fearless rather than fearful. I think that's kind of what I got out of the animal analogies.
Okay. That would work. I think it's about learning to be unconcerned about these things that everyone else is concerned about. And you got to remember, as we walk this path, very few people are on this. So the majority of people are not going to understand when you say, you know, I just sent love to that person, or I opened my heart to that, or whatever, you know, or responding with kindness instead of anger. And we just got to accept. Do what, Lala?
I was just say anger just begets more anger. That's why they always say, you know, it's like you can't fight darkness with darkness. The only thing that, you know, goes against it is light or love.
Right.
I must admit, it is really annoying when your sponsor says just love them.
It's annoying.
Yeah, Craig, just do it.
Well,
we'll be miserable. Which one do you want to be?
It's hard to just love them when you think they've wronged you. You know, it's hard to whatever.
It is a lower level vibration, and I feel it when I have my old tendencies come out, when I react to bitchiness or just, you know, even just giving a dirty look. It's like, you feel good about yourself after that.
Well, you feel sick because it dampens your spirit.
It does, and it's like I'm better than that, you know. You know, sometimes some people do push your buttons, and it's like
it does make you feel bad, but it took me a couple of hours before I felt bad. So I had a couple of hours of serenity.
But you know, that's overcoming evil with overcoming anger with love, overcoming evil with love, that where our response needs to be learn to be compassion. Because what is it? Our greatest defense is compassion. I've got it somewhere. Oh, yeah. Defend yourself with compassion is the most powerful force in the universe. That's from the 67th chapter. The most powerful force in the universe is compassion. So if we're responding with anything less, we have something better that's available to us.
Yeah, it's easier to respond with less because it's less work involved in it. That's why we tend to...
Still in self, Craig. You can respond in Craig with something less. And you don't have to die to do that. It is work to die. You don't have to die to respond like the 90%. But you do have to die to respond like the 10%. That's the difference. And we don't want to die. We don't want to let go of, you know, our selfishness and our dishonesty, our resentment, our fear, our ego, all, you know, our pride, which is a result of fear. You know, all this stuff that what names we put on it, it's still me.
Yeah.
And I don't want to give me up easily. So I think that's, for me, that's the deal, you know.
I think sometimes, too, it's like compassion from afar. Because like, my biggest trigger is just my mom and her 20 questions and all this stuff. And it's like, the more I can be understanding of, like, this is her behavior pattern. This is what makes her feel safe. Knowing more, and I just have, you know, and the more I kind of open up, the more she's like, oh, I got some, I got an inch, let me take a foot. So it's kind of like some people, you know, you have to kind of build the boundaries and the walls and kind of give them a little compassion from afar, because I do have people in my life that, you know, good people want to be attracted to people, you know, are attracted to people that have their shit together, that are, you know, kind of, you know, grounding and, you know, emotionally there. And it's like, yeah, but I don't really want you around that much.
Hey, Mara, try this and see if it doesn't help. I mean, Lala, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Try this, Lala, see if it doesn't help. What I've learned to do with those people, even though I've got my boundaries and all, when I think about them or before I interact with them, I physically just mentally say, I lower my resistance to this person. I open my heart to them, and I send love to them. And I try to stay in this open heart place when I approach them. And it seems to help for that to not to even start sometimes.
Yeah.
Because once I stopped resisting them, I have one person that's like that.
Yeah.
And when I stopped resisting them, they stopped pushing back at me and didn't even realize they had stopped. It was something deeper than what was going on physically, because I say, oh God, here they come. How can, I don't want to, and I automatically start pushing back.
Yeah, no, and it's very much like feast or famine with my mom. It's like either I'm completely like, I can handle her today, and here we go. And she comes on like tenfold for the next week. And so I immediately go, whoa. So it's almost like just kind of getting guarded, to some extent.
Do an experiment.
You're also
that farce and see if that doesn't help.
And I think you're also ready. You're like, oh, I know this is going to happen. And so you get.
I need to set my energy right before, but I mean, I was over at my sister's who lives across the street yesterday, and they're like, it's about that time. It's around after dinner. They're good. Mom and Dad are going to be stopping by. And I'm like, I should stay here. There's safety in numbers so that we can go with them together. I mean, it's like this thing that comes on because they like to stop. I mostly to check on her because she's bipolar, but, I live across the street, so then they naturally want to come check on me. And so I've just, I notice when it's every night, I get very anxious around that time, whereas I just go out, take a walk right around. The thing is, there's a long block of that time. My dog gets me away if I lock the door and pretend I'm not home, and they knock. Whoa, I'm here. Everybody, I feel like you have to kind of treat with a different pair of kid gloves.
You do. But try opening your heart before they get there, and try to just be open to them and see if it doesn't shift a little.
Yeah, and I think doing that without giving up too much, just having that openness without giving her all the answers to the questions she wanted, or,
I think if you learn to be open like that, Lala, she may change what she's asking. She may not ask even as much. It may physically change the interaction.
Yeah, because right now she doesn't ask things out of fear, because I'll be like, and it's sometimes, I have to, because it's like, you've ever stepped a boundary, you're going to get, this is what happens. We have a letting go group that meets locally, and we've been working on this in that group, and we had someone in the group that had similar kind of things with someone, and she had this in her job. Yeah.
And she learned to do this, and when she started, it changed everything.
Okay.
And people started behaving differently and doing different things because of just opening our heart and lowering the resistance to them before any words were said or anything. So, I just send love to that person. I open my heart to them today, and I just lower any resistance I have against them. Anything I can do for them, let me do it. And it
but it comes with that caveat of without exposing myself too much.
Well, this is the thing but that is an inner thing that you can do. It doesn't mean you're going to sit there and tell all. It just means that you're just open to the moment. It actually is doing what we saw at the first.
Being without acting.
Give himself up to whatever the moment brings. That's actually doing that. You're open to the moment. You haven't figured the moment out already and got a third response to it.
I know, because half the times I'm all worked up. It's like, what was I all worked up about?
Yeah, exactly. exactly.
It's an ongoing one. Mothers and daughters. Well,
Yeah.
Like.
What else do we have? Marla, you want to cover some more in Wayne Dyer?
I didn't circle anything, underline anything else, but
The part I liked, I do want to hit one more thing here. This part about die while you're alive. This is what we've been talking about, really. In your imagination, contemplate the death of your physical shell. Visualize it lying there lifeless. Observe how you, the witness, aren't identified with this corpse. In other words, you're not the body. Now, bring that same attention to your body as it gets up and goes about its daily tasks. Nothing could harm your human form when it was dead, and nothing can harm you now because you're not that body. You're the invisible, witnessing essence. Remain in this realization, knowing that you've experienced the death of your earthly container as your primary source of identification. In this new awareness, you're impenetrable and free. Here's how Leonardo da Vinci expressed the message of this verse of the Tao Te Ching. While I thought that I was learning how to live, I have been learning how to die. Do this now while you're still alive.
it's an interesting exercise. I was just kind of visualizing it, and then I got fearful.
Yeah. We're not this body.
Mm-mm.
We're not the body. So learning that, what we're talking about here is all the things from not taking things personal to the whole thing of, learning not to live for our ego and our selfishness, dishonesty, and our resentment and fear, and holding these things back and not fully seeking a spiritual solution in our life. When we start doing that, we're going to be one of I think in recovery, actually, not 10% of all people, but for me, it's about 10% of the people I see in recovery, actually. I can look at I thought about all the people locally I know in recovery, and about 10% of them are really pursuing a real spiritual way, practicing these principles in all my affairs. That's where the gift is. And that's the path that I want to be on, is practicing this in everything. Not just the things that threaten my life or might threaten my marriage or might cause me big angst. I want it in everything. And I think that's what the 10% is. Yeah. Let me stop the share. Anything else, guys?
No, go out there and be dead.
Whoa. That's not... Yeah, but what should we title this one? We've got a second. What do y'all think? What's a good name for, I wanted something, I don't know, any ideas?
Go off yourself.
Which has two meanings.
I've used one of those meanings a few times today.
How do you
thought about dwelling where death cannot enter, maybe. That sounds real. I don't know. I'll come up with something.
Love the middle bits.
What?
Love the middle bits.
Love the middle bits.
How do you live your dash?
Life and death.
Oh, yeah. How do you live your dash? Living in the dash. Okay. I'll work something with that. So, but if there's nothing else, guys, y'all have a fantastic week.
Thank you for listening to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. For more information about the RRC, the Recovery Revolution Community, go to omarpinto.com and click on the link that says Recovery Revolution Community. Once you join the RRC, you'll be able to participate in this meeting and many more live, plus access to a video library of past meetings and many more benefits for being a part of this growing community. Thanks again for listening, And if you enjoyed this episode, please share this podcast with your friends in recovery.